What is up, guys? TekTale here, Bitcoin Live, bringing y'all another episode of TekTale Tuesdays, the segment where I tell you guys a tale, and y'all sit down and listen to my story. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the prologue of Shotgun Warrior. Some of you had asked me, what is Sai's background story? What was, how did all of this come about when he was young? And I thought this out, and I didn't have like a real logical reason of why he had his powers, but I'm just going to tell you guys the story. And none of this is written down. This is all from in my head of what I remember of everything I thought. So, as you guys know, Sai is from the city of Suchu, which is in southern China. And in southern China, that is where most of the great warriors are from. This is all in my head, by the way. And the greatest of the warriors is in Suchu, where they're hard trained and everything. And among these is Sai's father, who is the most well-known throughout China. He is the most talented, most skilled, most everything. He's just the best of the best. He's, the best of what you can get. And, when Sai was younger, he wanted to grow up to be just like his father and fight alongside with him in these wars when he got older. And, him and his father had a very strong bond. Even though his dad was gone for long periods of times throughout wars, he had a very strong bond with his father, and he wanted to grow up to be just like him. So at a very young age, he wanted to learn how to fight. And he asked his dad, and he was completely just, excited about it. He was just like, wow, my son wants to be just like me when he grows up. He wants to be just like his old man. So they start training, and when they train, how they have like the wooden swords and stuff, like that the young people fight with or whatever, so they don't hurt themselves. Well, they were using those, and it progressed so quickly because his father taught him so well that later they started to use real fighting swords, and it was like if someone just walked down the street and saw it, you would think that they were really fighting to the death, but they were sparring. And Sai and his dad were sparring one day, and all of a sudden Sai had fallen backwards. He had tripped or something. I didn't really figure out what happened. He fell, and when he fell, his sword dropped, and his dad was coming down to strike him as he fell. Not on purpose, it was just he was coming down to strike him, and Sai had fallen as he was coming down. It was too late for him to, stop coming down with the sword. So Sai put his hands out as an initial reaction to this, and all of a sudden this big shockwave just comes out of nowhere and blows his father away and makes him do multiple flips throughout the air, and he lands like 10 yards away. And Sai's freaking out, and he's like, what just happened? Why is my dad like 10 yards away? And Sai's dad gets up, and he's sitting there, and he's smiling and laughing, letting him know he's okay. And he asks his dad, why are you laughing? And what was that? He said, son, I think you have a gift. And he figures out that he can, kind of control gravity, control objects and stuff like that, and can emit this shockwave from his hands and stuff to hit people with. Well, his dad sits there and trains with him and teaches him how to, control this power. And at this time, Sai is too young to enroll into a dojo, but later he does enroll into a dojo when he is old enough. And as Sai was training with his father before the dojo, he would always tell him, when Sai would always be like, Dad, I just can't do this. I'll never be as good as you. And, you're always going to be better. And I don't think that I can match up to what you are as a warrior. And he would always put his hand on his shoulder, and he would look him dead in the eye, and he would always say, Sai, you need to remember, you are my son, and you are destined for greatness. And he would always tell him that whenever Sai had doubts about anything. And it would always bring up his spirits and everything, and Sai would be good. Well, Sai enrolls in this dojo, and he's, you know, good for a certain point, and the dojo master starts to get, you know, more intense with his trainings and everything, and it really just pushes these kids to their limit. And they spar against each other, and one day Sai was sparring with one of the other students, and well, they were just going at it like just hardcore, just fighting and everything. And Sai had slipped up and he almost got hit. Well, when he did this, he used his ability. He didn't mean to, it was just an initial reaction. And he hit the kid, and the kid flew away. You know, he kind of just like bounced back in like the world and stuff. It wasn't nothing like powerful. So all the kids in there, they're just like, their jaws are dropped. Like, whoa, what did he just do to him? He didn't even touch him. And the dojo master walks up, and he's furious. He's sitting there and he's yelling and everything, and he looks at Sai, and he's like, what are you doing? And he tells him, he says he's sorry. And he said, you know, the training you have us under, you know, it's really intense. You might need to take it a little bit easier on us and get us up to the point. And he says, no, this is the way you fight, this is the way you learn, so you can be a successful warrior of southern China. This is the technique that we have taught for hundreds of years, and you will learn it the way I teach it. And he said, well, you know, maybe your technique isn't the best. And everybody's freaking out because, you know, you're supposed to respect the dojo master. And he looks at him, and he's like, wow. He said, you are nothing but trash. Very disrespectful, and I would expect something completely better of, you know, the son of your father. And he told him, he said, you know, your father was the top of my class, and he was always ahead of everyone. And he's like, look at how successful he is. Don't you want to be like that? But the fact is, you won't ever be like that because you're nothing. You are just trash among this entire class. And he said, you know, my father always tells me that I'm great, that I am destined for greatness. And I believe in him. And he said, well, maybe your father is wrong. And after he tells him this, Sai gets really angry with it. And he looks at the dojo master and he tells him, he said, you know, maybe your technique isn't the best. Everybody has their own way. Everyone has their own path. I'm choosing my own path. I've been given this gift, and I'm going to use it to my advantage, and I'm going to learn how to master it, and then you'll see, I'm going to be the greatest, and I will be, and I am destined for greatness, just like my father said. And he storms out of the dojo and everything, breaks the doors, and he almost collapses the building because he uses his powers, and he just blows the doors open, and these pillars are falling and everything. It's really cool in my head. So he goes home, and he's just storming through the house, throws his stuff down, and he goes in the back, and in the backyard, and he just starts hitting stuff like trees, kicking and everything. And I don't know if you guys know, but there's that one thing. It's a pillar, and it has these little wooden, not staffs, but these wooden spikes out. They're not really spikes, but you know, the Japanese use them when they're trying to like fight by themselves or whatever, and they keep hitting the pegs. They have like pegs outside of the cylinder-shaped pillar. Well, he was hitting one of those, and he was just breaking them. And his father comes out and he says, "Son, what's wrong?" And he says, "It's the dojo master." And he says, "Well, what happened?" And he explains to him what happened and everything. And he said, "You know, Dad, he told me that, you know, I'm not good. I'm never gonna amount to anything, and I'm not gonna be as good as you. And I'm just gonna be the lowest of trash in southern China, and everyone's gonna look ashamed. Everyone's gonna look at me ashamed because I don't fight the way the dojo master taught us, and how I'm gonna be different from everyone else, and I'm not gonna be successful." And he looks at him and he says, you know, son, everybody does have their own path. And he says, well, that's what I told him. And he said, you have been given this gift. You need to use it to your advantage. Not only will you be destined for greatness, but you will also go down in history as a hero and a legend. He says, you know, you need to follow your own path. I can only teach you so much throughout your entire life. At some point in time, you're going to have to use your mind, train yourself, and from that point on, you will be the greatest throughout southern China. And I guarantee that you will be a hero and you are destined for greatness. He looks at his father and he says, thank you. And said, I just wish the dojo master would just understand. And he says, well, a lot of people can be hard-headed in this town. And he said, but you don't worry about anything. You just fight the way you know how to fight, and just remember the basics of what I've taught you throughout your entire life. And he says, okay, I understand. And he puts his hand on his shoulder, and he says, but you need to remember, Sai, you are my son, and you are destined for greatness. And if anybody ever tells you anything different, let me talk to you. So all of a sudden, there's these huge explosions, and just fire is around everywhere, and just something just, you know, randomly happened. And he looks, his dad looks, and he sees something, and he runs into the house. And as he runs into the house, he goes upstairs into this room, and Sai looks and he sees his shadow through the window. And he says, you know, Dad never goes in that room unless there's something happening, like a war or something. And he sees his father, you know, running downstairs and runs through the house. Well, Sai runs to catch up with him. You know, his father's already outside. Well, somebody had ambushed the city. It was a big army, and people were fighting and everything. So his dad comes out with his sword and everything, and he's fighting. And Sai runs out, and he sees his father, and he has a sword of his own. And he goes alongside his father, and he starts fighting with him. And they're doing great. They have each other's back. They're back to back, and they're just obliterating this entire army. Just them, pretty much by themselves, because everybody else who fought had, you know, unfortunately they died. And as they're fighting, you know, some guy almost hits Sai's dad with a sword and everything, and Sai turns around and emits the energy and blows the dude away. Well, after the whole fighting scene, which is probably going to be like, I don't know, maybe a minute or two long, the fighting's finally over, and there's just smoke around everywhere, and they're still back to back, and he's like, look, Dad, he's like, we did it. We defeated the army. We saved the city. And he says, that's great, son. He said, I'm glad we did it. He said, you did excellent, and I'm very proud of you. Well, after this, his father falls down to his knees. And he says, Dad, what's wrong? Well, as he looks at his dad, he has like this huge gash in, you know, over his chest and on his stomach too. He's bleeding, and he's at the point to where, you know, in a few minutes he's gonna die. And he said, you know, let's get you to a hospital. He said, no, son. He said, I'm just gonna lay here for a few seconds. He said, I'll get up soon. So he helps his dad, and he lays him down on the floor, and he starts talking to him. And he says, you know, I'm very proud of you today, and I'm glad I was finally able to fight alongside with my own son. And you know, you gotta remember that he's in pain, so he's not saying it as clearly as this. And he says, I just need you to know that I'm very proud of you. Don't let anybody ever tell you anything different. That you are not a great person, and you are not a great warrior. Because I know that you are, and you definitely showed it today. And he puts his hand on his shoulder one last time, and he tells his son, he says, just remember and never forget that you are my son, and you are destined for greatness. And as that happens, his father slowly dies and closes his eyes. Sai is, you know, he's really upset, and he's also angry. and everything. And then I kind of cut it off after this. But he does go back to like his mom and everything. He lets his mom know the news and stuff. But that's about it for the prologue of Shotgun Warrior. If I do come up with more details, I will let you guys know. And I hope that you guys did enjoy this. And I know this kind of ran a little bit long, but I just wanted to throw all this out to you guys. So that will do it for this episode of TekTale Tuesdays, and hopefully I will see you guys next Tuesday. But until then, guys, this is Tech Knight 2 signing out.